Ready to pop the question? The jewelers at BlueNile.com have got sparkle down to a science with beautiful lab-grown diamonds worthy of your most brilliant moments. Their lab-grown diamonds are independently graded and guaranteed identical to natural diamonds, and they're ready to ship to your door. Go to BlueNile.com and use promo code LISTEN to get $50 off your purchase of $500 or more. That's code LISTEN at BlueNile.com for $50 off. BlueNile.com, code LISTEN.
Since 2013, Bombas has donated over 100 million socks, underwear, and T-shirts to those facing homelessness. If we counted those on air, this ad would last over 1,157 days. But if we counted the time it takes to make a donation possible, it would take just a few clicks. Because every time you make a purchase, Bombas donates an item to someone who needs it.
Go to bombas.com/ACAST and use code ACAST for 20% off your first purchase. That's bombas.com/ACAST, code ACAST.
Hello, you are listening to Just Films and That. This is the podcast where we talk about those films that we think deserve a little bit more love. Whether they're underrated or underseen, we're going to talk about them. So, let's see what it's going to be this week. Hello, welcome to Just Films and That. I'm the host for this week, Josh Halloran, joined by my brand spanking new co-host, Jamie Allen. Jamie, how you doing?
I'm good. Do you know what Alice never says, which I will? That is a fantastic introduction voice.
Thank you. She's very overly critical. Even now, she keeps texting me saying, you're going to be shit at the record later, don't you?
I think you did. That was really silky. You could be on Radio 3.
I could. Is that a classical one or all talk? I can't remember.
It's the one where people just do podcast introductions.
Is it? That's my niche right there. That's my niche this week.
I'm good though. I'm good. Thanks for asking, Josh. Obviously, I had some medical woes last time.
You did. How are you feeling?
It's slightly better, but I'm still. People can't see. I'm still a little bit bandaged up, so I'm still not bringing my A game. Wait till maybe next week, and you'll be like, oh wow, this guy actually, he does know what he's talking about. He's
few games of the season, innit? He's sort of waiting to see will the new signings bed in.
Right now I'm the Nunes of the podcast.
Carrying an injury. But yes, this week we're going to be talking about the bucket list, which it's from something like 2007, something like that. So spoiler warnings if you've not seen that. Had you seen it before, Jamie?
I'd seen it once when it came out. Well, I feel like I maybe rented it from
back in the day, kids.
Back ye oldie video shop. And it was definitely one that was on in the background. I wasn't really that interested. This wasn't like a get the lads round, get a pizza, Friday night, we're banging on the bucket list.
Yeah, it's not Ghostbusters 2.
No. So I know, I don't think I've ever referenced it.
No.
So I was excited to rewatch it, I think, because obviously I'm older now and, thanks for making me watch a film about people going into hospital as I'm constantly in and out.
Well, I like to test the co-hosts, you see. I've made Alice watch Rosemary's Baby and we don't even know she's coming back yet. But yeah, so anyway, the bucket list, if you haven't seen it at home, it's basically a story about two older gentlemen played by Jack Nicholson and Morgan Freeman, both are either ends of the economic scale, who find out that they are unwell and terminally ill. So they decide to make a bucket list, so a list of things to do before you kick the bucket, and go around achieving that. And then, as they go along, it's one of those where they explore each other's flaws and pros and cons and all that and become better or worse people. That is what the film is about. The reason I've picked it, a couple of reasons really. So I think it's critically underrated. It's not a perfect film, but I think it could be rated better by the critics. Also underappreciated director, this one. So it's directed by Rob Reiner. So if you don't know Rob Reiner, he's directed a lot of really well-loved films, things like This Is Spinal Tap, A Few Good Men, When Harry Met Sally, Misery, The Princess Bride, stuff like that. So, and I always think he's really underappreciated as a film director, because if you look at that hit list, along with some others as well, you think he should be way more of a household name.
Yeah, something I've heard about Rob Reiner is he's a great director, but you would never look at a frame and go, that's a Rob Reiner film.
Yeah, he's one of those. He's like no one knows what his actual technique is. So there's an element of being a really good director for hire, but at the same time, he's also that director of, he's the best director you've never heard of, almost type of thing. So that's one of the reasons to pick it. Also, I don't think we've ever done a Jack Nicholson film or a film with Jack Nicholson in it before. And I thought, well, why not? Why not do one? He is one of those sort of cinematic titans at the end of the day. So you've said you've seen this before then, Jamie. What was your sort of expectation going into it?
The first time, I thought it'd just be a kind of friendly, aren't we learning lessons along the way? And then, someone has to die because it's about people dying.
That's what it's about, yeah.
Yeah. And I kind of got and also I was expecting that this wouldn't be characters. I don't remember the characters' names now because it is just Morgan Freeman and Jack Nicholson. They are playing what you think they would be like if you spoke to them, I think.
They are very similar to how you imagine they would be in interviews and stuff like that. They're called Carter, that's Morgan Freeman's character, and Edward, that's Jack Nicholson's character. But we can just call them Jack Nicholson and Morgan Freeman. I think people know who we're talking about. And so let's get stuck in then. So watching it again with that more critical eye, what did you like about it? Did you like it? What were your sort of first thoughts, overall thoughts? What did you like about it?
And so I like how long they spend in the hospital at the start. I thought this was going to be, we're in, and then the second act is going to be 40 minutes of them doing the thing.
Just skydiving, cars, fishing, safari,
punching
all
a goat, all
the big ones.
But, big punch on a big goat. But this actually, it does. They don't. I think he actually handles it really well. That they don't dwell on the illnesses that they have, but they do show you what happens if you go through chemo. And it takes a while it's not just straight away. Oh, we're in a hospital room together. I'll warm to you. It takes a while for them to become friends, and so they actually build that friendship quite well.
They do. They do. It's a film. It's almost like a film in 3 parts. So like the first third, they're in hospital, getting to know each other. The middle third is them sort of doing the bucket list, and the third final part is the resolution and the ending.
Well, this is actually I only realized once you have the bath scene. This is structured like a rom-com.
It is a bit, yeah.
And I was like, this is like the bath scene in Pretty Woman. He's been won over by the lifestyle, and he says, "This is the first bath I've been in without corners." And
that's a good point, actually.
This is a rom-com.
Yeah, no, that's good. I mean, because it does. If you haven't seen the film, it does follow that same old framework. I think it's done really well, which is a hoity-toity rich guy gets brought down to earth by a touch of a character who's a bit more real, a bit more salt of the earth. And I think what I like in this is that they explore that to the extreme and in extreme circumstances, i.e. they're facing death. So in other situations, like you say, it's done for romantic purposes or some other way where a character is going to grow. But actually, if you look at the circumstances, there's no reason for them to grow as characters.
Exactly, yeah.
There's no reason for that to be.
It's actually less schmaltzy than you'd think as well, because they do head, and also they open by saying, this guy died, blah, blah, blah. And obviously it's a they trick you into you thinking, are we okay to do like massive spoilers on this?
Yeah, spoilers, yeah, absolutely.
So everybody dies.
It's like Deep Impact.
You're meant to think that it's Morgan Freeman walking at the end, but it's actually the assistant. I can't remember the actor's name now.
Sean Hayes.
That's it, yeah. Jack from Will and Grace. We know.
Yeah, the guy from Will and Grace. The Cat in the Hat, he was in that. With Mike Myers.
Which we are doing next week.
Yeah, we are, yeah. But yes, no, as you were saying, sorry.
Yeah, they already tell you at the start, look, someone's going to die in this. You're getting that death, and so there's not going to be a cop-out. Sometimes especially like big action films where you have like I died at this time, and then it's because someone died, but they got resuscitated.
Yeah, or everyone thought they were dead, or it was a body double or something like that.
And death permeates this, even when they're doing their fun activities. Like there's a great line that I actually wrote down when they're on top of the when they're on top of the pyramids, when they're next to that Final Cut Pro green screen, where he says, "I wish I had met you when we were alive."
Yeah, there's that great line. Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, obviously in this, you have that situation where they don't have to grow as people, but ultimately they do anyway. And that's where I think there's a real vein of sort of feel good running through it that I think does work. It does elevate the film from just an idea. So I do also like that idea of that. Like you said, I'd never picked up on the rom-com structure before. I think that's really interesting because what I do like that they give each other what the other one is missing. So Edward's Jack Nicholson's character Edward is incredibly wealthy but has no sort of emotional investment in anything, no family. He's got an estranged daughter, and that's his sort of arc, is learning to reconcile and stuff like that. Whereas Carter has never had much money and has an amazing family, and it's that idea of one teaches one to get in touch with his family, and then Edward essentially just gives a poorer guy a really, really good end of his life, and I think it works really, really well.
Yeah, and also it's simple. This is one of those, you know exactly what this film is in 2 lines. Rich guy, poor guy, dying in hospital. Rich guy says, "I'll show you the world," and then what they don't say is, poor guy has a wife who he's like, bye.
Well, yeah, we'll probably come back to that then. So what did you like about it? What's in the likes column for Jamie?
I really like the performances. I think this could have been a phone it in Jack, and I think with a different director maybe, but probably the respect they had with Rob Reiner and that he knows how to direct talent. I think this is great performances from both of them. I mean, they're not really pushing because, as I say, they're playing Morgan Freeman and Jack Nicholson. But that speech that he has about the estranged daughter, I thought that was actually quite moving. So there was nuance in the characters, and I liked how also it steers away from cliche quite a bit. Like I was waiting for when Jack Nicholson's character sends a sex worker to Morgan Freeman. I was watching it like, okay, because he's done that, this is going to be the inevitable bit where they fall out, and he actually just laughs it off. And you have to have the falling out because you have to have a bit of conflict.
Yeah,
but there was moments where I was like, and this is where this beat happens. I was like, oh, it didn't.
It chooses
it didn't
not
happen.
to almost. Yeah. No,
and
I agree.
There's a bit where, and full spoilers for this, so you haven't seen it, go watch it and then listen to this. But you find out that Jack Nicholson is in remission just through a throwaway line. Yeah. And I think other films would have that moment where he finds out and he's crying, he's blah, 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 wow, I get to live again. But instead, it's an afterthought because they're more invested in the relationship. He's in remission, but he's upset because his best mate isn't talking to him.
And it's also quite true to the character as well that he's back at work and someone acts as if they're worrying about him because he's not making sense or seems to be not concentrating. And he just goes, what are you talking about? I'm in remission. Like, shut up.
Yeah,
and it works for the character. So I think that's I think that's a really, really good point. They don't have the thing, but yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? That whole thing of you don't get phone it in Jack Nicholson. So there's a touch of, like you say, they are on autopilot, but they are both very good at what they do.
But it's also I don't mind that that's them too because that's what I want.
Yeah.
Like you, weirdly, as I was writing down, oh, we're getting a Morgan Freeman voiceover because we're getting Shawshank Morgan. And I was like, well, you don't need a voiceover on this. But they were like, we're doing a voiceover because it's Morgan Freeman. And as I was like, oh, okay, so this isn't original. You had Jack Nicholson getting his head shaved. And I swear the mirror he picks up and the angle they use is identical to when he gets the mirror in Batman and realizes that he's the Joker.
Mirror, that bit.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, God, is this like a reference just to tell people, like, don't worry, we're not doing anything new. This isn't going to be like a modern drama. You're still getting old Hollywood. And even though we're going to permeate the film with death, it's not going to be like, this isn't an essay on death at all. Or how
it's not. It's not.
And it's not depressing as well. Like, you would think 2 guys dying of cancer. I think they have the montage of them like shivering in the beds and you obviously you do get to see what happens with chemo, but then both of them pretty much go, oh, once we're out of hospital though, it's asymptomatic. You can't even tell that we're dying because we're not on a here's the effects of cancer journey. We're on a kind of hypothetical. If you were a billionaire and you were dying, what would you do?
Yeah, and there's I think that definitely plays into audience wish fulfillment as well. Which
I wish I was dying of cancer.
No, but that idea of wish fulfillment. So that idea of realistic escapism. So yeah, you can watch Star Wars or Marvel or whatever, or James Bond, and be like, oh, I really wish I was a superhero. But this is like, well, what if you did just win the lottery?
Yeah, there are some
movies
that make you have a conversation after the film that go, what if this? What would you do in that situation?
Yeah.
And this is an ideal. Like, how many couples must have turned to each other after watching this and gone, well, what's on your bucket list?
Yeah.
And, you know,
would you leave with Jack Nicholson
Yeah.
if he offered to pay for everything you'd ever wanted?
I'd become a car mechanic, weirdly. So he already had the life I wanted.
I didn't tell you one thing I didn't know is that this film is responsible for the turn the bucket list.
Yeah, I was shocked at that when I found
just
out.
assumed it was an actual thing.
Because you don't. Is this 2007?
Something like that. Yeah, it's around then, and I just thought that it was a commonly used phrase.
Yeah, it feels like it's been around since before we were born.
Yeah, and we were both born, a year or two before. 2006. Yeah, but yeah, it felt, it's one of those. It's like if you found out a film was about the bee's knees or something like that, or some dog's bollocks. So like,
oh god, don't give them ideas.
New from Pixar, the dog's bollocks.
Chris Pratt is the cloud with the silver lining.
So we'll move on to anything we didn't like or that we change about the bucket list then. So is there much for you, Jamie? I think there's probably one or two things in there. It's not perfect. I think it's good, but it's not perfect.
Yeah, there's a couple of things I had. I mean, one is the special effects I've dated. But even at the time, I remember going... And the thing about the special effects is it's actually... I think it's worse in this because, they weren't there, but the whole point of the film is live your life properly and like do the adventure thing. So you've got a film saying, "Oh, come on!" Like the skydiving isn't part of the plot. The act of skydiving is what's integral to these characters, and then they're clearly showing you, yeah, but we didn't make the actors skydive because and it's like, well, are you really embracing what the film is about then? If you didn't do that, and it's just really grating when they didn't drive those cars. They didn't go to Egypt. And
it was all in one studio.
Yeah. So
no,
I think it kind of, it's a bit, if it was a different film, where you're like, oh, that's not the point of it, I'd be fine with that. But I think because the message that they're trying to say is, if you've got stuff that you want to achieve in life, do it. And they're like, yeah, what we wanted to achieve was to go to a soundstage in LA.
There is that bit. So when they're actually doing the stuff, a lot of the stuff, I don't mind it because it's that wish fulfillment thing. But at the same time, there's a 20-minute block in the middle of this film where it feels like they've gone, just do some stuff with the trailer.
Yeah.
So skydiving, fast cars, safari, a nice meal, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And it just becomes a bit repetitive in that middle chunk.
The actual bucket list is quite boring. It's like they didn't really think about it, and it's those, like, if you asked AI now what should be on a bucket list, it would say skydiving, fast car.
There's one emotional beat to the bucket list actual element of it, and that is that Jack Nicholson's character has kissed the most beautiful girl in the world on his list, and obviously the twist on that is that he has a granddaughter he didn't know about. So she is.
That was a really nice callback because I'd forgotten about it.
Yeah, I like that bit. But the other stuff, like you say, it's literally if you went to like you say, an AI generator or chatbot and went, what sort of stuff would be on people's bucket lists?
Yeah, and the other stuff was a bit fluffy. The whole like improve a stranger's life, and then Jack gets to take it off, and you're like, well, hang on, mate, that's a bit cocky.
You should pay for everything.
Yeah. I feel like you would have got a bit more nuance from them if there was something like they keep showing. Morgan Freeman's obsessed with this car and then he gets to drive the car. But have something, maybe I want to go to this certain cafe in Paris and just sit and be in the moment for a second, or I want to, punch this actor in the head. I want to desecrate someone's grave. Something with a bit more.
What if they took it all Last Action Hero and both there on the list was punch Morgan Freeman and Jack Nicholson, and then they come and meet Morgan Freeman and Jack Nicholson.
Oh, Jack Nicholson had asked for double pay
and a percentage of the gross.
Yeah,
twice. Anything else?
Yeah. Well, I think. You can't have a billionaire as likable. Like billionaires are morally corrupt in essence anyway, and it's kind of wish-washy that it's like, oh, he owns these hospitals, but things seem fine. The only complaint they've got is the pea soup, and like deep down, no, that man is would be borderline evil, and he wouldn't have that really. I really like the relationship he has with his assistant as well. But I just think they kind of wash over the fact that he's in the business of privatizing hospitals.
Yeah, it's just that he's a bit of a curmudgeon. He's a bit grumpy. He's a bit of a prick to his assistant. But like you say, like by its very nature, it would be. I mean, he would be a controversial figure.
I don't know how I feel about him not shooting an animal on the safari, because I was like, I think a billionaire would, but I get why they had to have him not do it. And it is kind of funny having him, but he wanted to shoot the gun. But deep down, I'm like, this might have had a bit of grit in it if there was like, maybe he has to talk him out of, that could have been a real moment where Morgan Freeman, and it doesn't feel like an overlong film, and you would have got some humanity there if on his list is, to shoot a tiger or a lion.
He literally seems to, at one point, it doesn't say it, he infers that he has paid someone to, if not kill his daughter's abusive partner, certainly scare him enough to never ever coming back again.
Well, that would have been better if on the list was The Greatest Game and they hunted Jimmy.
Yeah, one of them is number one. I'm going to find that guy scared, and I'm going to cut his head off.
And the whole film, they just carry his head around.
It just suddenly becomes a Saw film.
Yeah. And the bucket is the bucket they keep the head in. There you go. But yeah, apart from that, I think the list could have been a bit more nuanced.
I agree.
And also, maybe, do we want to cover that? It's very wish-washy that Morgan Freeman leaves his family.
Yeah, so that's on my list. So he does just leave his family. So on one hand, I completely get that it's the end of his life and he gets a chance to experience things he would never get to and all that sort of stuff. But his rationale is, well, I've spent my whole life working to provide for my family and stuff like that. But his wife says multiple times in the film that she spent decades as a nurse, which means she also worked to support the family.
Well, we have to assume she's an awful nurse.
Yeah, she's rubbish. Yeah,
she didn't pick up on him being sick.
She's just a pathological liar. Yeah. She just wasn't a nurse. But no, that I think that idea of self entitlement and stuff like that, I get it on one hand, but on the other hand, unfortunately, you've had children, which means therefore you have a responsibility to be there for them and stuff like that.
And also, either have it that he's a widower, or have something stronger there if you're going to reflect on turning your back on your family to go live out this bucket list. And he only ever seems to change his mind once the sex worker in the hotel is offers a dream night, and then he's like, oh, hang on, no, I do love my wife. Okay, I'm gonna go.
Because there's even stuff like Edward is a billionaire, right? He's so rich. Take him with you.
Yeah.
Just be like, do you want to go to Egypt? Yeah, no, I would love to go. Because there must be places where they go where she would love to have gone. Maybe not jumping out of a plane if that's not a thing, or driving a fast car if that's not a thing. But I bet she'd like to go to the pyramids, or I don't know where they go to, a nondescript bit of south of France, like Saint-Tropez or somewhere like that. And he obviously goes for a very expensive meal.
Well, I think what we need to infer is that he hates his family.
He just hates them. Because he loves trivia. Trivia is his real family.
He's got that thing of I've been looking after this family for 45 years, and it's a hint of I'm sick of you. You gave me cancer. The stress of this family. So I'm going to go with this guy.
I'm going to go with this billionaire I don't really know. But no, I think it's worth touching on that he does just up and leave his family. The only other thing for me is, I think there's some real conveniences in place in terms of the script and elements of the plot. And I think there's some elements of, they should have been a bit clearer with the rules of the world. So the whole thing comes about because Carter is writing his bucket list and then basically gets told, I think this is right, he writes his bucket list, or he's writing it, and the doctor says to him, there's nothing more we can do. And so he crumples it up and throws it across the hospital room. And then Jack Nicholson picks it up and reads it. And he does that whole film thing of give it back. Give it here. Give it back. And it's why would you care? You've just been given possibly the worst news a person can get. Why do you care if the guy who's sharing your room reads a couple of lines on your bucket list?
I think the bottom line was kill this guy in the bed opposite me. That's what it was. But yeah,
tell this guy that he likes coffee, which is basically shit. But
that was clearly written as we need a mild bit of tension between the two before we explain what the bucket list is.
Even though you've just showed them getting to become really pally with each other over the last 10 minutes and stuff like that. So stuff like that. What, it never makes clear things like, have they got a shared list? Do they, because they keep writing on each other's lists and arguing with each other. So have they got a list each? Have they got a shared list? Can they put things on each other's list? Why does it upset Edward so much that Carter puts his daughter on the, Carter does the thing with his daughter? I think it could have just been a bit clearer on the rules and expectations that they have for it. And you don't want to be too prescriptive about it and stuff like that. But I do think it's like, it's just a bit, there are elements where I think because of the cast and the director, it's taken slightly above by the numbers, but occasionally it does just drop back into being a bit by the numbers.
Yeah, and I think you could have had more things on the list. And then I'm just thinking about this now. How at the end of the Hangover movies, actually then they end with the night, like photos of the night.
Yeah.
And also, like the reason why the Predator credits at the end shows them all, it's because McTiernan wanted the film to end on a high note. So he's like, I've brought them all back to life for this end credit sequence.
Like a curtain call almost.
So you could have, and we know that they weren't putting that much money into the special effects, so they could have done it all green screen. You could have then had at the very end just show them doing the list in photo form.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good idea. Or write one that's massively special effects driven. Just one's just Jack Nicholson just says fight the Hulk.
Yeah. Blow up the Statue of Liberty before it walks again.
De-age myself because it's really expensive apparently.
But buy all of the Marvel property.
Yeah, I want to see Hulk fight Groot. That's one of them. But yeah, so yeah, it's a bit about the numbers in places. But although I will say one thing that we didn't cover in likes, which is we've mentioned this on the podcast before, which is that this is a film that is not made for the majority of the cinematic going audience, i.e. it's something like 18 to 35-year-old men, basically. So this is a film that will probably be made for what's called the silver dollar, which is if you think of things like this, or Victorian Abdul, or Best Exotic Marigold Hotel, and stuff like that, which is films for older people that will get them in the cinema. I think it's Spider-Man 3, Step Up to the Streets. Yeah.
But yeah, it's nice to see that the conversations that we know our elderly relatives probably had is being represented on screen. We know that as you get older, you start to become more pragmatic about death.
Yeah.
And they have those conversations about, do you want to be buried? Do you want to be, do you want to be burned? All that.
Shot at the cannon. Yeah. But yeah, I think it's really important to note that, isn't it? Okay, so we'll move on to talking about the critical reception then. Now, I've got it here. So obviously, Jamie, hopefully you haven't seen it. How do you think it did? How do you think it did critically?
I think this is because it feels like a warm hug of a movie that didn't punch up above like its barriers. So I think that there's like it's a perfect 3-star film. At a guess, I'd say this is floating around the 60%.
Okay, let's have a look then. So at the time of recording, now this is a bit of a misdirect, these scores, looking at them now, but over on IMDb, it gets 7.4 out of 10.
Oh.
Yeah, which is, that's quite high. Rotten Tomatoes, the audience give it 77%, which is pretty high. But the critics, and this is why I chose it really, give it 41%.
Harsh.
So I mean that's a 36% difference on Rotten Tomatoes. So if you work out the average, it's 64%. Now I think this is a sort of 7 out of 10 film. I think it's not perfect, but I think it's perfectly watchable. But I think that 41%, I think that's really harsh.
Yeah, I think you've made the right call here. I mean, when you said we're doing this, I was a bit skeptical because I was like, this isn't like a cult film where people are like, oh, this, it's not like The Warriors where people are like, everyone's got to watch this.
Yeah.
But 41%, I think that's snooty critics who, because this is a film for your nan or your dad,
and that's it. And
that audience deserves to get films like this. Where
it does, and that's one of the things we're about on this podcast. If you're new to it, we have done things before where we'll cover films where they might be for a specific audience. So we've done things like Just My Luck or A Cinderella Story and stuff like that, and the critics just slam them. And it's like, it's really easy to go into a teen film with Lindsay Lohan or Hilary Duff or whatever and just slag it off. But actually, I think you have to look at it through the lens of, does it achieve what roughly you think that audience is looking for? And in this case, I think it does. So I think that 41% is harsh, and I completely agree. I think it's critics being overly rigid when they're reviewing it and stuff like that. So are we saying underrated then?
Yeah, I'll say underrated.
So there we go. The bucket list is underrated. So I'm quite happy with that one. And so far, me and Jamie have done 2 films, and we've agreed that both were underrated, or we've agreed that for whatever reason they were picked, that the other person is in agreement. So we've not fallen out yet, but it's Jamie's next choice now. So we'll see. Yeah. So Jamie, it's your turn to pick next week. What we're going to be watching and what we're going to be talking about.
We are watching Outbreak, the Sick Monkey movie.
Indeed. Outbreak, the Sick Monkey movie. Outbreak, the Sick Monkey movie.
Yeah. And sick, like 90s slang, like this monkey's sick.
Yeah, unwell. Like, not...
No, he's good at a skateboard.
Mint monkey. It's like... So, anyway, join us next week. We're going to be talking about Outbreak. In the meantime, if you'd like to get in touch with us, filmsandthatpod@gmail.com. We're on all the social medias. If you just search for Just Films and That on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, you'll find us. Give us a follow. We're always putting stuff out there. We're on Patreon as well, so if you fancy supporting the podcast and getting a little bit of extra content and early access to ad-free episodes for your book, then click the episode link. The link is in the episode description even. And then all that remains to be said is we'll see you next week for Outbreak. It's goodbye from me. Cheerio!
Bye!
Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
The Real Housewives is a guilty pleasure for most, but if you're looking to not feel guilty about that pleasure, tune in to Everything Iconic with me, Danny Pellegrino, where I break down all the messy moments and behind-the-scenes antics of Bravo's popular franchise. And on Everything Iconic, I also interview celebrity guests like Kelly Ripa, Keke Palmer, Drew Barrymore, Cameron Diaz, and more about their guilty pleasures, their past work, and so much more. So if you're pop culture obsessed and find yourself watching way too much reality TV like me, tune in to Everything Iconic with Danny Pellegrino, wherever you listen to podcasts.
Acast helps creators launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts everywhere. Acast.com.